Hello, my friends. Good morning or good whenever you are viewing this. It might even be evening. I don't even know if this will come out until afternoon. I hope you are staying sane this week. We are in Jared's bedroom studio. I've got my bobby pin in because I can't get a haircut. And while Delaney has offered to cut my hair, I have discreetly sidestepped that option. Sorry. Before I started my lesson, I wanted to point you towards the description where you will see the link to Pierre's video. That way you can decide on if you would like to sing with him before or after you hang out with me. We've got some good feedback last week, so thank you for that. We hope to be able to work together like we were most weeks before the lockdown. Before the lockdown. I've used that phrase quite a bit. Remember before the lockdown? It has occurred to me, and many others, that life can change quite quickly. That's why the phrase is getting used. I've been getting trained at work for the last few weeks, and I'm learning everything twice. The way we're doing things now, and the way we were doing things before all this. By all this, we're talking about the rules of social distancing, the call to stay at home, no more going out with your friends, no more seeing those people. Yes, even the people you don't like, but you can't see them even if you wanted to. All this at Royal River means people are eating more at home, and we have to help feed them. What is your all this? What's changed for you since March or whenever this started? I like using video, in part, so you can pause it to answer my questions or look something up. But also, you won't hurt my feelings if you just keep chugging on. Maybe another question that you consider now is, what do you miss about that before time? What do you miss? What are you promising to never take for granted again? So, whatever your answer was or will be, I would hazard a guess that it probably has something to do with being around the people who you want to be around. Some of you, your life revolves around other people. It hurts so bad that you can't work with them, or see them, or hug them, or go for a night out with them, or a cup of coffee. I kept on pushing off breakfast plans with Al before all this started. Al, what a bummer, dude. Now what? We're just here. And I'm thinking of small business owners who can't be with their team, big or small. It's not just a social thing for them, it's their business. Maybe that's their whole life that could be in the balance. I'm sure they miss the before time. All of this points to the idea that humans are social. We are meant to be with people, working with them, playing together, teaching each other. Think of a time you have laughed. When's the hardest you've laughed that you can remember? I will bet high odds that you are not completely alone during that memory. Probably you are with someone who it's easy to laugh with. I hope that you've been able to keep on laughing during the lockdown. You might be wondering what I'm going to be talking about, and if anything I've said will relate to it. I've been wondering something similar. You might have a clue if you've gone and sung with Pierre before, but basically I've been thinking about if there's a similar situation to the one that we're all going through in the Bible, and if we can learn from it. I've decided to stay away from plagues and disasters and worldwide crisis, and the Bible has allowed us to basically zoom in on one person, the Apostle Paul. arguably one of the most influential people in the history of the world. And really, he has always been influential. Paul has always made waves from the second he showed up in God's story. On one side of his wake, he's the persecutor of the church, riding here and there, charging up fellow zealots and putting people in their place. And on the other side of his wake, he's the focal point of riots and courtroom drama and really worldwide religious turmoil. That sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm reading near the beginning of the book of Acts and the end of the book of Acts, and this is Paul's story. He didn't ask for it, but it's what happens when you're a person like Paul and you've got a message to preach like ours. So, there is a stretch of Paul's life that we should be talking about now. It's his years in imprisonment. The later, more politicized imprisonments. The one where he seems to sit year after year, waiting for trials, getting shuffled around, not knowing what will happen next or when it will happen. It's Paul's life in lockdown. The other night I was reading the end of the book of Acts, and it was so interesting and intense. If you want to experience that, I would say go ahead and read Acts 21. I read Acts 21 verses 17 through the end of the book. It's a life that looks a little bit like ours right now. Not all the way. There are some important differences. It's actually just a bit worse than ours, and I'll tell you why in just a sec. But for now, you should know that Paul is in prison even though he is innocent. And it's not like we might think of prison. To us, prison is a place where you are either separated from the population or you are reformed, and then you might have a chance to go back into the population. In ancient Rome, prison was only a waiting game. Prison was waiting for a trial where you would be able to state your case. And then you'd be allowed to go free. Or you'd be sent into exile, or you would be tortured to death, or if you were a guilty Roman citizen, beheaded quickly. You might be imagining Paul in a dank cell in the basement of some Roman palace, and yes, Paul has been in these cells and worn those chains, but the imprisonment we'll be focused more on is later, and a little bit more relatable. Because Paul is probably in a waiting area more akin to an apartment or a dorm when he's in this later prison experience. It's a place where Paul has more freedom to do things like write letters and maybe see an infrequent guest, under watch from the guard, of course. So, the letter that we will be looking at carefully over the next several weeks will be the letter to the Philippians. It is one that Paul wrote from prison, and the occasion that he writes it for also relates to us. You see, I'm trying to imagine Paul's life and all the work that he has to do, and how, if it were me, I would have been so debilitated by a lockdown. With the weight of God's mission on you like that, lockdown in a pointless apartment would be really hard, because Paul's got places to go. And in the letter to the Philippians, it's plain that something that's actually hard about the lockdown, what he actually spends time talking about, is how badly he misses his friends. How he just wants the chance to be with the people he's got to be with to do the things he's got to do. But that's not what's worse about his lockdown over our own. And maybe this is true for you, or maybe not. But all of the canceled plans and trips, that's a bummer. All of the money you might be losing in the economy is a bummer. The added rules and uncertainties and anxieties are a bummer, but at least in one way, we all have to go through this together. A friend reminded me recently, at least all of our plans got canceled. At least all of our money is disappearing if you're into 401ks and stuff. At least we're all stressed out and lonely together. It's a little more bearable when you know everyone has to go through what you're going through. Yesterday on YouTube, there was a huge concert with scores and scores of artists and entertainers from all around the world. I didn't know very many of them. And they were using their webcams to perform for however many millions of people tuned in live, and we'll watch it later on. It was called One World, Together at Home. Now, my cynical brain has some problems with that. For billions of people on our world, it's not so easy to just stay home if there is a home to stay in. And it's not so comforting to see the inside of these mostly multi-million-dollar homes while you're stuck wherever you're stuck. But they were doing a good thing, so I'm happy it happened. But the title of the concert, One World, Together at Home. It's comforting to know that no matter how stressed out or upset you are with the lockdown, most people in the world are going through it with you in some way. But here's where Paul one-ups us, where we can learn from him, much like the Philippian friends have to learn from him. Well, we're alone, but not alone in a way. Paul is just alone. And what does his life look like when he's alone? How does he talk to his friends in the church when he's alone? One world, carrying on as normal without Paul. There was one performance in the concert I got to watch all of. It was Jack Johnson singing Better Together. Let me read some of the lyrics. This is the opening lyrics. There is no combination of words I could put on the back of a postcard. No song that I could sing, but I can try for your heart. Our dreams, and they are made out of real things, like a shoebox of photographs with sepia-toned loving. Love is the answer, at least, for most of the questions on my heart. Like, why are we here, and where do we go, and how come it's so hard? It's not always easy. Sometimes life can be deceiving. But I'll tell you one thing. It's always better when we are together. So it's always better when we're together as a church. And that's true for Paul too. My hope is that by the end of this sermon series, we will actually be together so we can say, yes, it is better now that we are together. But at least we get to be alone together. At least we can sing a common love together while we're apart. I'm glad Pierre picked that song. It ties all of these themes together. God is love. He's a unity principle for us that holds our common love, and that's the same love that united Paul with the Philippians. I'm excited to look over all of that together in the coming weeks. Hopefully at least partially in your presence sometime in the future. Blessings to you. Pray for us, and we will be praying for you. Persecutor of the church, rioting here and there. I think I hear somebody. Hopefully this will go into the back of the video. Who do I hear? Someone just woke up from a nap!
It wasn't me.
Anything to say, guys?
Say hi.
Hi, church.
We miss you. We miss you.
We love you guys. Have a good week.